Hey, what is up guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. So I just want to give a big thank you to everyone who left a comment on the 10 features I want to see in update 1.49 video. A massive thank you to each and every single one of you. And today, well, I've handpicked 10 of my favourite comments that you guys left on that video, and I'm going to put them in, well, a community video. So without further ado, let's get started with the first point of the video. This was written by Storm, and of course it's relating to the missions. It's as simple as that, and it's very self-explanatory. He wants more missions, but I'm also going to add to that point and say that they should be repeatable rewards. Now, the key issue with missions, when the game first launched, it did seem pretty stacked. There was a fair amount of them for a day one launch, and even with the first ever post-launch update, these got added to with the form of 8 endurance missions, and of course the rewards that go along with them. Now, unfortunately, they're not repeatable, so once you've completed them, there's no real reason to actually go back and do them again. So once you've completed all of the missions in the game, and well, since they've not been updated since the first ever post-launch update over 2 years ago, missions are very much lackluster and very much lacking at this point in the game. It's a massive waste of what seemed to be one of the most promising features of Gran Turismo 7. Let's move on to point number 2. This one is going to be by Diesel Dave, and he goes on to mention selling parts and the fact that he would happily take a loss on selling parts by quite a fair amount if it meant he could get rid of some of them. And I do fully agree. It's rather quite bizarre that we seem to get this collection of, parts over time, and if you've been playing the game since day one, if you're like me, you've probably got a huge stack of tuning parts that you just don't need or have lying around. All of these actually have a monetary value on the card itself, telling you how much that part's worth. Yet there is no way to actually go ahead and sell them. It's the exact same with engine swaps before the engine swap update came in, and whilst we can't we can't go ahead and sell them, we can actually go ahead and buy them. Again, it all had the attachment of how much that part's worth, so why can we not go ahead and just unload and get rid of these extra parts and engines that we don't really require anymore? Again, a very simple feature that would just help to add in ways to make money in this game. Next up is going to be pit stops. This one is by Martin. From the comment itself, it basically goes on to say that there needs to be improvements to this feature, and I fully agree. Whilst it's quite a minor thing overall in Gran Turismo 7, one of the most disjointed from reality things about this game is the fact that the pit stops are just absolutely strange. You'll enter the pit lane, your car will then just disappear, you'll go into an animation where you just wait for the car to come to the pits, they'll go through the pit animation, and then all of a sudden your car just phases back into existence at the end of the pits. And it's especially annoying when you're watching other cars go into the pits. They disappear and then they just reappear at the end. Whilst yes, it's kind of a minor feature, I do feel like improvements such as finding our own pit stops or having the animation play out for the entirety of the grid and not have these phasing cars would just add to the authenticity of the racing going on track. So for me, I fully agree with this point. It's a massively overlooked feature, and hopefully it does get some improvements. Next up is going to be B-Spec mode. A lot of people were saying this, but for me, Alan's comment just stood out straight up. B-Spec. Now, of course, this is a mode that was in a lot of Gran Turismo games around about 20 to 10 years ago, and then it just seemed to fall off the face of the earth. Of course, not present in Gran Turismo Sport, and then unfortunately it hasn't returned for what was supposed to be a return to form in Gran Turismo 7. For me, B-Spec is a great way of just playing the game in an entirely different way. There's nothing cooler than training up your AI driver, getting him more confident, seeing him take part in races using cars from your garage, and having its own entirely separate career mode. For me, the best version of B-Spec mode was always in Gran Turismo 5. I absolutely love just the sheer amount of content that was in that game, and B-Spec for me didn't feel like a last minute addition. It felt like its full-blown own thing, and it was really, really good. Unfortunately, it's not returned in GT7, and I feel it should. Next up is AI improvements. This one is by Lego Huracan, who goes on to mention that he wants to see improvements with both the rubber banding on the AI when it comes to the chili pepper races, and as well as that, there just should be higher difficulties added to the game. See, for me, Gran Turismo 7's in a very weird place when it comes to its AI. So probably one of the most notorious things from any Gran Turismo game is the fact that the AI are notorious for being, well, absolutely terrible. In the older games they would absolutely stick to that racing line, and it would take one good big push to actually get them to even break it. And whilst it has become more dynamic over times, and whilst we have seen the implementation of Sophie in a, guess, a smaller sense, that is still not fully ready. So at least adding extra difficulty to the AI does kind of, I guess, get rid of that problem slightly by adding to the difficulty of the game, and removes the fact that rubber banding is just absolutely terrible, whether it's speeding them up or really slowing them down. Next up is going to be Paint Shop. This one is by Skeet. What he means by this is the fact that, well, why do we have to go ahead and make custom liveries for a car just to change the paint of the car? It doesn't make sense to me that it's this way only. There's no option to just jump in, choose a colour, and that's it. You have to make a full custom livery to be able to just change the colour, and again it just adds to the time that you're sat in the menus when you could just be doing other things. I fully agree, the menus in Gran Turismo have never been good. However, in Gran Turismo 7 and it being released in 2022, still supported in 23 and 24, things like this should really be on the list of what they need to improve. It's a typically Japanese style of going the long way around all the menus in a game just for very little payoff. You know, just the smallest thing that you need to do in game, you have to go through 10 different menus just to get it done, and then eventually 10 more to get back on track. It's just a massive shame that it's this way. Very outdated. Hopefully we do see some UI changes. So apologies, I'm probably going to butcher this name, but I believe this comment was by Powitzer, who goes on to mention mirror cams in every single cam. And I fully agree. Why is there not a mirror in every single camera option, or at least the option to toggle it on and off? Most racing games do feature this, and especially considering that the radar is all the way in the bottom right hand corner, and you're not really going to focus on that whilst you're racing side by side. And again, the lack of mirrors does add to, collisions and such, especially online by drivers just not being aware. I fully agree that there should be the option to turn this on for every single camera, not just one, which is of course the bumper view, which I believe has pretty much always featured a mirror cam for whatever seems like the longest time at this point. So the option to then go ahead and put this in the other cameras would just make sense, considering the radar is completely out of eye view when you're racing. A minor change, but in my opinion a necessary one. Let's move on next. I'm going to pick you H Adam for this one. This is one that I do see a lot of the time, so I'm going to finally cave in. Again, since it's not an individual car, I am more than happy to include this, and that is going to be Aussie cars. It's really quite bizarre that this game has none. Whilst they have the likes of Bathurst and all that good stuff, it literally features 0 Australian motors in this game, and it's a massive shame. It's not like the fact that they've never had them previously in other iterations of Gran Turismo, and whilst I get it does take time to build up the car roster considering the amount of changes from the whole standard premium days, this should have really been a thing where we at least had a couple of them day one. And here we are almost 2.5 years later since the game launched, and well, we still have no representation for Aussie vehicles. So I fully agree that this is something that needs to be focused on. We had the likes of Skoda, Volvo all added in post launch, VGTs as well, with new manufacturers coming in with those, and yet Aussie cars, nothing. Next up is going to be subgroups. This one is picked out by Night Fox, and I fully agree here. For me, it's always been strange that the categories is so broad and not really fine-tuned to make the whole category itself much more, I guess, suitable. For me, seeing Group 4 would realistically represent GT4 machinery, yet there's a lot of cars in that group where they're either TCRs and so on and so forth. Same when it comes to Group 1, you've got Le Mans prototypes, you've got Group C, hypercars, so on and so forth. Why not just have these balanced out into smaller subcategories to just make the category itself much more streamlined and much more balanced? I fully agree with this one. There should be subcategories in the game, not just these broad groups with almost everything sort of shoved in there, from super silhouettes to GT3 machineries, DTM cars, so on and so forth. Again, fine tuning is the key. It would really add to the balance of online racing. And for final comment, it's going to be from Henry. A lot of people actually left the comment about wheels, and I fully agree here. There's a lot of wheels in game, however there's a severe lack of, I guess, more up-to-date wheels, and customization in general kind of feels a bit lackluster after so much time. Of course, this is a rather newer feature to GT7, the likes of body kit changes, you know, wheel changes, so on and so forth, but it just seems to be lacking. And I'm also going to add to that is body kits themselves. Getting the licenses for more wheels and kits for specific cars will be a massive thing. The likes of BombX, Veilside, all that kind of stuff. Go ahead, license them and get them to be able to be customized in game, just making that extra personality to all these cars that we're building up over time. So I fully agree with everyone that mentions wheels, but I'm also going to add my own point of licensed body kits as well. This I fully agree with. Customization, whilst it is great to see, definitely needs that extra fleshing out. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. That is 10 community comments that I picked out from my previous video. Thank you to everyone who left a comment, and congratulations to all 10 of the comments that made it into this video. I hope you have the fantastic rest of your day. Take care, guys. Peace.